The ride to kind of global domination has been an interesting one for us. We went live in America 18 months ago expecting 20 clients, and we got like 3,000 within 48 hours.
Hello and welcome to Traction, the technology show exploring innovation, growth and tech success. I'm James Taylor, founder of Roaring Mouse, PR advisor to some of the world's most innovative technology businesses. I'm here at Pennine 5 in Sheffield with my co-host, Peter Hopton, founder of Very PC, Isotope and Venture Community. He's an investor, mentor and rockstar chairman to Productive Machines and Tuber. And we're joined today by a very special guest, Mark Taylor, founder and CEO of Automated Analytics. Mark, welcome to Traction. You've ventured in from Doncaster today.
I have made the great trip across from Doncaster to Sheffield. People make out it's a big long journey, but yeah, 15 minutes I was here.
I think you're our first guest from Doncaster, so welcome.
Oh, do I win an award? Do I get a prize?
You get to appear on the show. So let's start. Well, tell us about Automated Analytics then. For people who haven't heard of the company, how long has it been about? What do you do? And why did you start it?
Yeah, sure. So I started the business on my kitchen table about 12 years ago. So I was previous to that marketing director of Hilton Hotels, marketing director of Virgin. Always had the same problem. Service businesses, really difficult to attribute all the sales that you're generating online because a lot of those sales went offline. So whilst a lot of people think that, you know, your hotel bookings are all done online, or you've got weddings, banquets, conference meetings that are all done offline or booked offline. So I always had a problem with attributing all of my marketing spend. And I then got into private equity. My first private equity gig was Nationwide Auto Centre. And it was there, I was sat in an auto centre, posh name for a garage between you and I. And I was sat there and someone phoned up and quite rightly the branch manager answered and you could hear they were on the website and they were saying, look, I can't book an MOT today, my MOT runs out, any chance you can slot me in? And quite rightly the centre manager said, yeah, no problem at all, you know, come down at 5 o'clock, we've got a spot, we'll get you MOT'd. And I immediately thought, hang on a second, I'm bonused on the success of the website and I've got a sale there that I can't attribute back. So it immediately led me down to, well, how can I make call tracking better? And so we sold the business to Halfords, which is now known as Halfords Auto Centre. And I was very lucky to be part of that process. Got involved with the sport to health clubs, same kind of challenge, health clubs. A lot of sales happen within the health club, and again spiked their sales by 30% by doing some stuff online. But again, really was limited by being able to track and track the success of the marketing. And then I did my final private equity gig was in an insurance services company in Norwich, which, if anybody knows, commuting from Doncaster to Norwich is not exactly next door. It's about 3 hours on a Monday morning, which I loved. And I created the world's first booking engine for locksmiths because they wanted to create a B2C proposition. And no one bloody used it. They all called. And that's when I thought, right, I've got to do something about this. And it was my old boss, John Cleland from eSport, who said, I've never seen anybody do what you do in marketing. You need to find a way to productize what you do into a software product. So I started in a place called Loversall Hall, which is a small, slightly home, renting an office. Sat in there for about 2 years trying to work out how to get this damn thing to work. And created a very successful call tracking, is what I would call it, a piece of software. But it had its limitations because it's great knowing the source of a call, but if you don't understand the contents of the call, or then you could be optimizing your Google spend drive customer service calls. So that's when I got into AI because I was employing banks of people to listen to calls. It just seemed insane. I was spending a lot of money on it. So I was in Benidorm, the posh bit, Old Town. And I literally sat down. I can tell you the cafe where I was, the seat I was sat at, wrote our first algorithm, phoned up our then CTO, got him to create our first basic model. We had a model up and running within about a week. It just transformed our business. You know, we can optimize, or we can analyze, 10,000 calls in 0.2 of a second with a 95% accuracy. So we've got companies like Centrica who've doubled their website sales off the back of our technology. We've got finance companies who are now 100% compliant because they can analyze all of their calls. So anybody that's manually listening to calls, we've replaced that process with AI. And then because the tech was so successful, we then had people phone us up saying, look, can you slow it down because you're generating too many sales, we can't cope, we haven't got enough staff. And being entrepreneurial, I just thought, right, I'll give that a go. It can't be that difficult finding staff. And I realized that the recruitment process and the attribution of recruitment is very similar to offline sales. You start the application, is online, and then you interview it offline. And so we developed a linear algorithm that basically tracked the source, the date, the time of when an application was made for recruitment, and then we matched that with recruitment data and used that in a programmatic bidding model. So last year, Pizza in America saved over $1 million on their recruitment, but increased their hire ratio by, I think it's about 20%. So really, in some ways, it could have been the Okie 3000, but we got into AI because it actually solved a problem that I'd had as a marketeer for some time. So, and the ride to kind of global domination has been an interesting one for us. We went live in America 18 months ago, expecting 20 clients, and we got like 3,000 within 48 hours. So I'd love to tell you it's been a smooth journey and it's been a great journey. There's been challenges that we've had along the way, but it's been immensely fun, and I'm very lucky that I have a business that I absolutely love.
And playing that back to you, it sounds to me that what you're very good at is using AI to kind of combine or bring together multiple data sets to kind of paint a picture of a journey through that.
Yes.
I mean, what's ultimately the problem that clients are looking to solve when they get in touch with you? Do they recognise that that's the problem, or are they starting slightly further back from there?
It often starts with, I'm paying too much on Google. I'm spending a fortune on Google. I don't know what my return on investment is, or I don't know how to bring my Google cost down, or my Indeed cost, or my advertising cost generally. And there's that old saying is, I know half my advertising is working, I just don't know which half. That's what we solve, whether it's in a recruitment or a sales or a marketing. And like I say, we've branched out into compliance now. We track outbound calls so you can optimize for sales. And it's really giving people that real-time feedback on what's happening within their business so that they can then make business process changes to make it better. So we work with a fertility clinic, and they've doubled their sales by understanding where they're not asking for the sale, and they're able to do it at scale. They've got a sales team of 10 people. Unless you listen to every single call every single time, you're not going to know what the performance is like. We do that in 0.2 of a second. So, and for me, being an ex-marketeer and ex-salesperson, having this data readily available, it makes a massive difference to your online advertising performance.
And give us a sense of the kind of the scale of the operation you've got happening over in Doncaster.
So in Doncaster, we've got 15 employees. So that ranges from coders through to sales and account management, customer success, and then senior management. We've then got 5 people in Asia, and then we've got 7 people in America. So we've got an office in Charlotte, in North Carolina, but we've got people dotted around America because I think the majority of people in America work from home in our industry. And for us, Doncaster, whilst you'd probably tell by the accent I'm not originally from there, but it's been my home for 15 years. I love the location. It's given me so much. And for me, I've never had a problem, never had an issue with being based in Doncaster. In fact, I think it's one of the benefits of being in Doncaster is, for me, they've got such a can-do attitude. They get stuff done. I think the second thing is the local skill level. It's providing people with opportunities so that they can stay in Doncaster rather than commute to other parts of Yorkshire or Nottinghamshire, which is what we give people.
I'm keen to talk briefly about Doncaster in a bit, but going back to automated analytics, I think you were named one of Europe's 1,000 fastest growing companies last year.
Yes, yeah.
And I believe these things look at growth rates over a 2-3 year period. What did you do particularly well in that period, or was it simply a case that the world woke up to the value of AI?
So we've been growing at 100% year on year for the past 3 years, which is no mean feat. Like I said, I'd love to tell you it's all plain sailing. There's always challenges in growing a business, but that's the fun bit, right? The enjoyment isn't coming from growing at 3, 4, 5% year on year. It's that big growth. And I think where we started out was we were very much what I would call an advertising optimization company. So we take your Google Ads campaign and use our tech and optimize it. But then we had some investment from Maven Capital, who have been great partners of ours, who put some money into the business to help me grow it, because I was always frustrated. I was always hitting the overdraft limit. I was always, we could only grow so fast. And I remember at the time, they'd put in, or at the time they'd invested, I think we had about £50,000 worth of recurring software license, and now we're north of 3 million. And it's just that growth that we've just seen. And the crazy thing is America as well. I mean, if someone had told me how big America is before I'd gone to America, I never would have believed them. But getting a foot into America, the growth on that, this year we're growing at like 600%. Okay, it's a low base, but it's just the volume of America. I can go and do one deal in America and it's the size of Dubai. in terms of market size. It's just having that if you like, UK American footprint has made a massive difference to us.
So I often hear that America is a much better early adopter market than the UK, but it's got a completely different combination to get through the door.
Yes.
You've got a lot of marketing experience.
Yeah.
What can you share with our viewers about tuning for that American combination lot?
So, couple of things. So, first thing, my accent will get me through the door. But unless I've got an American sat next to me, they just won't believe that they'll get any customer service. So, it's not the first time we tried to enter the US market. We tried to do it direct, tried to do it ourselves. Didn't really work because we're trying to do it all from the UK. So, that's the first thing I learned. The second thing is we sold through a channel partner. We've got a great channel partner in Fourth Enterprises. That's how we got so many clients so quickly, and we could get a foothold in very, very quickly at scale. That's what's made a difference for us. So, but then there's little nuances like banking. It's really easy to get money into the States. Really difficult to get it out. So if you're trying to pay for costs in the UK from US revenue, you're better off having a US team because it's very difficult to drag the money back. And I completely agree with you. There is the if you like the adoption by the Americans, it's one or two conversations. Yeah, let's try it. What's the worst that we could lose? Whereas often in the UK we find that people are a lot more risk averse. But in America, your pricing is potentially could be quite a bit cheaper because you've got the volume play and you've got a few more competitors out there. But it's been a really exciting experience for me. I mean, I've never traded the business in America. And, thank God I've got a very, very strong chief operating officer in Jason Peacock because he's done an amazing job for us. And I think without that expertise, that local expertise, we would never have been as successful as we are.
You've got thousands of customers, many household names as well. What are they getting from you that they can't get elsewhere?
A platform that works. It is that, and I think it's that real-time data. I think every business I've worked in has had like a data gap. I wish we could know this, I wish we could know that. And by plugging that data gap, as you said, we're taking numerous sets of data that are disparate, putting them together, analysing them with AI to give real-time insight into how your company is operating. So, for Centrica, they can see what's happening in every one of their franchise operations almost by the minute. There's no other platform that they've got that can give them that level of information. And so for us, it's by providing a really, really good quality tool that does something different from our competitors. So, our competitors don't have the data classification decision trees that we have. They don't run at the same accuracy. They don't have their own transcription engine. One of the reasons why we developed our own transcription engine was, as you guys probably know, for your AI model to work, you've got to have very, very accurate data. If the transcription of the call isn't accurate, well, then your model's not going to be accurate, and it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy of not being accurate. So that's why we took the time and effort to develop our own, because then we're in control of it. We can develop it how we want it to be. Seen from a personal identifier information point of view, we can decide what gets taken out, whereas other solutions you can't. It's a lot more secure. We can host it on-prem, which is why the NHS is talking to us at the moment about using it, because we're the only platform globally where you can actually put it in a box, in a location, and run the analysis from a highly secure point of view. So I'm always looking at product development. We never stop. We've always got a quarterly roadmap. My CTO and Ben and product director Mike, that they absolutely love the fact that I go away on holiday and come back with 1,000 ideas that I want to do next week. For us, we live and die by how good our product is, and then backed up by a really good customer service. I always find that, particularly in software, you don't have to always have the best in class, although we think we are. But if you have great customer service, you'll keep clients. That's why our retention is 97%. Our net retention is over 140%. Which are world-leading stats, and we're very, very proud of. And
it's terrific to have great software and great customer service. But in terms of the kind of growth figures and picking up 3,500 clients in the States. Yeah. In 48 hours, what is it that you're doing to make sure that they're aware of you and that clearly they're coming to the website and signing up in droves?
Yeah, I think the American growth story is amazing. So it's the end of June. I'm sat in my kitchen again, and we've got a report on how many users have signed up, and I kind of refresh it, and we're aiming for 20, right? We're aiming for 20 clients. I think I refreshed it in the first 2 or 3 minutes, and it was like on 50, and I'm like, right, the report's broken. So I phone up our CTO, Ben, who's based in Asia, wake him up. Oh, the report's broken, there's no way we've got this many clients. And he's like, no, we really have. So no, you can't. So I think it got to about 4 o'clock, and I think we'd breached like 700. So I thought, right, I'm going to have a gin. And it, literally, the more gin I had, the worse that, the more clients we ended up getting. And so I realised, right, okay, we really need to focus on this. And by the Monday morning, I think I was flying out to America and kind of setting up our offices and making sure we had a support team to cope, because we really were not expecting that level of success. But it was a great journey to go on, and obviously with such growth, growing pains, when you're growing a business at such velocity, you have growing pains. We're not brilliant all of the time. There are areas that we can get better at. But for us, I think what really made us sit and take notice was channel partners. We always used to sell direct. But if you want to get size and scale, so through channel partners, we have a channel partner in the UK that provides us with, I think, Europe's largest PPC agency. They've got over 800 clients using our platform, and if they put the client on our platform, the retention goes through the roof. They keep those clients for longer. So, we know we've got a very sticky product, but it's that continual development that drives me.
It's quite a good meme where it's like first-time founders going for features, second-time founders going for distribution. Yeah. Kind of echoes this channel partner
Yes.
obsession that you've had here in driving that distribution.
Yes.
Talk to us about your VC round, Maven. Talk to us
Yeah,
about
sure.
Where were you beforehand? How did your fundraise journey go? Term sheets? Talk us
Yeah,
through it.
sure. Yeah, no problem at all. Well, my background was private equity, so so Nationwide Auto Centres with Phoenix Equity, brilliant partner. Not really in tech, but more, used to own Jimmy Choo, LK Bennett, and Nationwide Auto Centres. Great partners to work with, super supportive. Next one was Esporta, which is Societe Generale, which is a French bank. Again, interesting relationship. Was only there for a year because we managed to get the business away quite quickly. And then my final private equity gig was LDC. Now, what's interesting, that private equity experience, if you like, was really, really useful for when we went to go and get private equity ourselves. I'd always set the business to do it, because the bit of feedback I got was that there was a fund, a guy called Mark Advani, who runs a fund in Manchester called Bridgepoint, always said to me, look, Mark, you need to go and do something yourself. We're not going to hire as a CEO because you're not got the experience. Go do something yourself. Become your own CEO. So you can take about 2% claim as to give me the motivation to go set the business, which he always reminds me of, by the way, every time I talk to him. And so really for me, it was making sure that we had a product, but a very successful business plan. So I had some track record, we got some scale. So I think we're up to about 1.5 million in terms of total turnover. We had a plan. That plan was based on solid grounding, if you get what I mean. But also me as a person, I'd taken several risks. I'd worked for 2-3 years without any salary, because I was that bought into what I was doing. I knew I was going to make it work. And so for me, the fundraising round, we employed an external advisor to help us go and find the funds. We were very lucky that we had 3 or 4 people that came forward that wanted to invest. Always good to have a bit of competitive tension. And the reason I picked Maven was because I thought, when things go wrong, which sometimes they do, you want someone in the bunker next to you, fighting the enemy, not 20 yards behind you throwing the grenades at you. And I got that feeling from Maven. And Maven have been a great partner for us. They invest, 1 to 2 million pound check size, but they, 40 companies a year. They get a good return. I've got a very good relationship with Bill, their founder, and they've been super supportive at the end of the day. And you need that from partner, because you don't always get it right. Let's be honest with you. You can come with a forecast, and then Trump comes out with tariffs that we never even thought were going to happen, and that affects, potentially a global recession that no one thought was going to happen this time last year. So you've got to have a partner that is aligned to you, will support you. Maven have been great. When I ask for help, they give it to me. They don't micromanage me, which for all my ex-bosses, I think they realise that micromanaging me is not the way forward, not the best way to get to get the best result out of me. And so, for us, it's been a very good marriage. Have we always got on? Generally, sometimes they give me some advice that I've not implemented. Other times they give me some great advice that I have implemented. But I've also got a very good chairman. It took me 2 years to find him, a guy called Bill James. And he's managed to build a relationship with me where he can stop and make me listen. I am, as most founders are, we pretty much, pretty much stick to our own script, if you get what I mean. Not always great at taking on board advice, but he's found a way to build that rapport with me. And it took me 2 years to find him. I kissed a lot of frogs to find him as a chairman, but he's been brilliant for me and keeps my feet firmly on the ground and really does question me. And he's also worked out, when I say, yeah, let me think about that, that's code for, no, I'm not going to do it. And he's worked that one out, so he knows what to push and what not to push. Also, though, I've had a very, very good business or angel investor, business angel investor in Neil Campbell. He's been almost like an older brother to me in terms of just helping and through his connections base, but also, just sometimes take the pressure. Because when you run a business, if you don't do it in a partnership, you just do it on your own, it can be quite lonely sometimes. You're in it on your own, you're thinking about things, you've got no one to talk to. And he was great. He's been really, really good source of advice, and I still chat to him every week. And we're probably going to be the best investment he's ever made. I hope we are. I certainly want that tag. But it's about surrounding you with the right people, I think. And there's lots of people that will, I'd really love to come work for you. I'd really like to advise you. But actually, you want the people that represent you, because you're the owner, you're the majority shareholder. And, you just don't want people that are going to stitch you up at the end of the day. And that's why with the term sheet with Maven, if I'm honest with you, talk about term sheet, we had a few drafts. I think we got into like draft 22, I think, by the time we signed it. Nice. And it took us probably about 6 months, which I was prepared for, by the way. But we wanted to make sure we got the right deal. Now, it's first round. So you do sign your life away. You've got to know what you're walking into. But if you're convinced you're going to deliver, none of those should be issues for you, in my opinion.
Traction is brought to you by Roaring Mouse, the PR and content agency building some of the world's most innovative technology businesses. And Venture Community, a cooperative society where entrepreneurs, experts and founders come together to build and accelerate startups.
Well, one of the themes that we've had on the show, we've been talking about the founder that signs the term sheet, that is it right through the door, and actually a lot of the people that have been successful have negotiated those term sheets out.
Yes.
And taken several months and had the positioning and the runway to do so.
Yeah.
Those that still haven't signed the term sheet until the very last minute and have taken the opportunity to negotiate sometimes like somebody that's mad holding a grenade. You've seen that. So it's quite reassuring to hear that, you took this time, you laid out your funding runway, and you ground those terms out to do the right deal.
Yeah.
Because there's too much where a bad deal's done.
Yes.
And it undermines the company. The other thing I want to pull out from what you said is that this relationship between the founder and the chair, that's quite interesting. The founder has to be able to listen.
Yep.
The chair's also got to be able to understand at which point, okay, this is something where I'm getting pushback and I'm not going to be able to get what I want, but actually that's part of the give and take of it.
Yep.
But also sometimes there's boundaries, right? Hard boundaries. Talk to us about those.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting because it took me 2 years. I met a potential chairman candidate and he said to me, I call it blood on the walls every time we have a board meeting. I'm going to tell you what you've done wrong and what you're going to do to fix it. And I'm thinking, so I'm going to pay you to chew me out every month. That doesn't sound like fun. No, thanks very much. And that's why it took me some time, because there are a lot of people that want to be a chairman. I get it, non-exec roles or exec roles quite fun. But what Bill brought to the party was very much a steady hand, and he sorry to use such language, he don't take any shit. And so I knew he'd be a very, very good pair of hands. But he's the type of guy that I can phone up at 9 o'clock on a Friday, and he'll chat to me. But also I can talk to him about stuff outside of work. I can talk to him about, Formula One or whatever else it is. We have that type of relationship. And I would say a similar relationship I had was, funny enough, when I was at Nationwide Auto Centres, a guy called David Hamid, he was our chairman, and he was great because probably want to get a bit too involved in the business at times, but he was great at offering advice, and he probably came up with 10 ideas. Probably 2 or 3 of them were absolute gems. The other ones, but it was the fact you had that relationship with him, and you got to, with your chairman, it is you and him against the rest of the world, is the way I see it a little bit. And going back to your term sheet point, is never be afraid to down tools, right? If it's not the right deal for you, guys, down tools. How do you think about this? Because having that break, that pattern break, because it's great to get an offer. Whoa, your company's been valued at this. When I think it was about 2018, I had an offer from HomeServe to take 20% of the business, and it was great because, oh my God, my business has been valued. This is great. I've built something of value. But then actually, it wasn't the right deal for them. It wasn't the right deal for us because they weren't very good with startups and they're better at buying more mature businesses. But it gave me the confidence to think, right, we've got something of value. And so don't be afraid to walk away or have it, right, we're downing tools, which I have done. I did with Maven. There's something that happened that, right, we need to dust ourselves down. Let's take a step back. Let's just get everything sorted in our heads and then we can move forward again, which is what we did.
Interesting thread to pull there. A lot of people receive those term sheets where they see the valuation. They think, my company's worth that now. And sometimes there's then a squabble between the founder and the co-founder about what percentage of the value. And sometimes the company self-destructs.
Yep.
I think there's something that we all have to realize when we receive that term sheet, we got that valuation, that the valuation is entirely speculative on the future. And it represents not today's value, but a projected value that's then risk adjusted for today. And there's that North Star, right? The mission. Tell us more about your mission.
So if I can just talk about valuation for a second.
All right, go for it.
Because I think it's a really good point you raised, right? Too many people get hung up on valuation, right? It's a mechanic to an end point, right? So you've got to decide, and I always call it walk away. Whenever you're in negotiation, what's your walk away? What's the minimum you would accept? Anything above that is bunts, as far as I'm concerned. And so for me, the other thing about wild valuations is you're just setting yourself for a massive fall in future if you go for too high valuation. So I never get upset about the valuation. I also realise as an owner, I need to, I've got to give away, I've got to give a deal. From day one, 1 + 1 has got to equal 2.5 in private equity. That's a successful deal. If you try and do it at, 1 + 1 equals 1.9 or 2, it's not a good deal for anybody, right? And I'd much rather own, 30% of a £500 million company than 60% of a £50 million company at the end of the day, because do the maths and you're going to be better off. And there are those people that have gone through multiple rounds. And that's why, for me, getting a minimum viable product and getting that to market, getting revenue in as soon as you possibly can, which is our route, and then start building on top of that. That's what you've got to do because, at the end of the day, cash is king. You've got to bring that revenue in. So when I think about valuations, it's I see some of these lofty valuations, and I just think you're heading for a fall if you're not careful, depending on which way you go.
So we got that thread. There's 2 pins in the board here. That the 0 to 1 journey.
Yep.
We talk about venture community, the journey of turtles across the beach to the sea. Yeah, as like the analogy for this, it's all about focus on MVP, focus to revenue, doing that run while you're out of water, and it's tough. And it's going to go slower.
Yep.
But you get to that point where you've got that revenue, everything starts to ease up. I think I'd like to hear a little bit more about your 0 to 1 journey and where you decide to focus on that MVP and which market you decide to focus on first, and what that focus looked like for you. Because too many people slip into FOMO, right?
Yes, and that is funny. It's keeping on that straight and narrow. If you get what I mean, right? You've got a product, you've got a value proposition. Just go sell the hell out of that. I think where I've seen it go wrong is, I took a pay cut, and I have taken a pay cut, at each step almost. And what sometimes worries me is I've got this great idea, and I'm only paid a fortune to run the business, to see if I can get this great idea to work. That for me will never work, because as an investor, well, if you're not prepared to make a sacrifice, why should I? Why should I give my hard-earned money? That's how I see it. And so that minimum viable product for us was, it was product version 1 of our product really that good? Well, you know what? It got us some clients, and then we started building on top of that. And I think there is this, you can build the best thing in the world, but what happens if no one wants it, right? You're much better off learning as you go. That's what we found. And so that kind of, as you say, the turtle getting into the sea, for us, we made a minimum viable product. We then started adding in features to it. We got our clients to give feedback so that they would then come up with some development for us. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. There's a time when we got giddy on Facebook leads, and we thought, this is brilliant, we're going to grow the company through Facebook, and then realised that actually it killed retention. So retention dropped from like 95% to, I think it was down to the 80s, and we were like, whoa, 6 months later, whoa, what we done? And then we tracked about the Facebook and stopped doing that, changed the proposition. And for us, it's that continual learning. I used to measure the business every 4 minutes, right? Which is insane, by the way, and particularly when you're on holiday with the kids. It's not great when dad's constantly updating his phone to check how much money we've made today and all this kind of stuff. But that's the way it was in the early days. I was constantly checking stuff, and it was all on me. I mean, I remember probably, I was 20 hats. It was me and two coders, and then I hired our first employees, which was a big risk to take, but I knew we could do it. And, I'd love to say to you, I've got it right every time. I haven't. But it's when we've got it wrong, right, reverse out of that quickly, go to the journey that you want to go to. And at the end of the day, what's the problem we're trying to solve? We're trying to, reduce, if you like, increase the productivity, but reduce costs in the business. That's our mantra. That's what we stick to, what we're trying to do. Advertising generally the second or third largest expenditure of any business, aside from their staff. And so we knew we had something. And then when you get big brands on board, and it took us some time, at the beginning, we were almost giving it away. To get those clients on board, to get those customer testimonials, to get that success story. And a big tipping point was, they're actually our second ever client, was a company called Neighbourly. They're an American company that they own some franchising brands, Drain Doctor and Mr. Electric in the UK. And they were probably our largest client, right? Then Centrica approached me and said, we'd like you to do the same, but for Dino. But by the way, you can't work with Neighbourly anymore. One of our biggest clients. And we decided to do it because we thought, well, hang on a second. We've got an opportunity to earn a lot more money. And we've got to do it for the success of the business. And unfortunately, we had to say goodbye to Neighbourly, who were one of our founding clients. That was a real tough decision to make. And even now, some of the ex-Drain Doctor franchisees I'm still in contact with, I miss that localization. But Centrica have helped us grow so much, and you've got to make those difficult decisions and not be afraid. And also, if you're not making money out of a client, you've got to be brave enough to turn around to that client and say, look, I'm not making money out of you. And I think that has been a skill I didn't get it right to begin with. I remember telling somebody that we weren't, first time I did it, told somebody who was a gas installer, I think they were based in Huddersfield, look, we're not making any money out of you. I'm going to have to increase your costs. Didn't wear it very well. And pretty much cancelled his contract straight away and moved off. Whereas we wanted to have, we're only talking about like a 5% increase. And so for us, it's working with our clients, understanding them. And I think, it's not being afraid to make brave decisions, but quick decisions, which I think you can make when you're a much smaller client or much smaller company.
Your initial customers, these pragmatic, early adopter, short sales cycle decision makers,
yep,
are often going to be in the 80% of customers that make 20% of your income. But you start to get some later, and that's your Centrica. It's your 20%er, and you have to drop some of your early customers in order to achieve that and advance your Pareto's law.
Yeah, and it I'd love to tell you it was easy to do. It's not. I'm the business owner, and I have to make some of these decisions, and we had to make it again last week, and it's tough to turn down revenue, but you want profitable revenue now. And I think that's been one of our successes, is that we've really been able to optimise our business and really be quite profitable.
I'm not sure I would have been as brave. I think I would have ground it out with Centrica and maybe lost the deal. Yeah.
Interesting.
Some bravery there.
Thank you.
For the future, how big could you be? How big do you want to be?
Well, whatever target you set me, I'm going to smash it. I'm going to keep going. So, someone always said to me, so what happens when you hit 3 million ARR? What are you going to do? Keep going. We hit 5 million, we're going to hit 10 million, we're going to hit 15 million. I love this business. I'm very lucky that I don't feel that I work a day, because I love what I do, because it's what I was doing as a marketing person 10, 15 years ago. So I'm lucky from that point of view. We've only scratched the surface in America. We started off with a lot of small clients. We're now kind of moving on to getting bigger enterprise clients. Pretty much same model as we've done in the UK, but quicker because we learned how to do it. And I think we're just scratching the edge of AI. We've been approached by an African government. Can they use our application in an intelligence situation? So actually monitoring intelligence and working out what's being said. The NHS are talking to us at the moment because again we're the only transcription service that can be run on box on premise. And so for me, we're just going to keep growing, and that's why I'm really proud of Doncaster, because they're very supportive of us. They're opening gateway ones. They're building these fantastic new offices that we're the anchor tenant. So hopefully you'll join us in the gin bar, by the way, because we're creating our own gin. It was one of the things that I learned from Hilton, is that everywhere in the world, every Hilton restaurant, staff restaurant, does fish and chips for Friday lunch. So I wanted everybody to have their first drink on automated analytics on a Friday night. We're doing non-alcohol as well to respect everybody, but we're going to be coming out with our own gin for staff so that they can have their first drink on us. And for me, it's continuing our growth in the US. Like I say, we're scratching the surface. We've got a very good growing business in the UK, and then looking the other way, looking at potentially Europe and the Middle East is what we're looking at the moment. So we're live in Germany and Poland, and we're looking at Spain and Portugal and France at the moment.
There's a lot of chat at the moment about the ethical use of AI.
Yes.
Various lawmakers around the world are wrestling about, for example, whether it's appropriate to be interpreting large amounts of intelligence data, for example. Do you have a view as to kind of the safeguards that, organizations like yourselves or governments need to be putting in place to make sure that this technology is used only for good and not for, some of the doomsday scenarios, but quite plausible risks that you could think about?
Yeah, so first things first, we need regulation. So I've been surprised that the UK hasn't gone down a regulation route yet, when Europe, who've gone a bit too extreme in my opinion, which they've admitted, I think, and America, which it's like the Wild West, that's America for you, but there are certain states, so Texas are looking at launching a bill, which actually I think is quite a good AI bill. So I think some of the challenges of AI is using it for profiling people. That makes me very nervous, because you're getting a computer to make a decision that a human might do. And so for me, I think, we use a supervised model. So we have a human being that checks the data, or checks a sample of the data to make sure it's accurate. And for me, it's when a model isn't accurate. So there is a country in Africa that is using an app at the moment to predict whether you've got malaria or not. That model has got less than a 50% accuracy. So if we use that model today on ourselves, one of us is going to have malaria, which I don't think any of us have got malaria right now. But you could be prescribing malaria medication to someone that hasn't got malaria. That's where I think AI goes wrong. And I think the difference with us is we've taken a theory and we've actually delivered it. A lot of AI is at the theoretical stage at the moment, whereas with our platform, it's not theory, it's real life, and we're making big impacts for business. So for me, the regulation has to address the ethics, the accuracy, and for me, companies need to adopt more of a process that they probably do with data, in terms of have like an AI officer. What is our strategy? Every piece of AI that they use, it needs to go through a proper decision process. Should we be using it? So for example, if you're using ChatGPT or if you're using some other products, technically you're giving your IP to that AI model to check it, if that's what you're doing. If you're using it to check code, do you want to be doing that? You've got to ask yourself a question as a business owner, do you want to do that or not? And I don't think there's enough of that at the moment, but I know the government are working hard on coming up with regulation, and probably I think ours will be the gold standard that others will use, which is why they're slowly moving forward on it.
You're based in Doncaster, and you've been a driving force for its vision to establish Doncaster as a centre of excellence for AI. And also you've spoken about putting in place the world's first cloud AI data centre. How are things progressing there? And it may surprise some to hear that Doncaster is a centre of excellence for AI. So what's the substance there?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate in Doncaster. It has a lot of power connectivity. So the two things you need for an AI data centre, although we don't need an AI data centre to run our tech on it, the chance of creating the world's first green-powered data centre, I just think is a massive statement for any country, let alone Doncaster, to make. And we're very lucky in Doncaster, as we're almost at the centre of connectivity for power in the UK because of the coal mines. So if you can imagine taking, an old industry that's now pretty much shut in the UK and turning it into, a new age industry like AI, I just think it's a great opportunity for Doncaster. And we're very lucky that we have Damien Allen, who is the CEO of Doncaster Council, who's been a brilliant supporter of ours, gets it. Ros, who's the mayor, she's done a great job in supporting us. You've got Dan, who runs the Chamber of Commerce, Sally and Ed, who are the MPs locally. They're very much championing at the bit to make Doncaster an AI growth zone, because why not? We've got the power connectivity. We've got the almost like a ready-made facility. It's just about getting that AI growth status and getting that power connectivity, and why not Doncaster? And I've always said this, and I'm sure people think that I can be a bit strange about Doncaster, but you've got to go out and get this stuff, right? There's no point waiting, right? No one's going to pick up the phone and talk to you. You've got to go out and get it. And I keep saying to people at Doncaster, come on, we're going to go out there and get this. There's no reason why we can't go and get it. And I think growth zone status will be interesting. I think we're one of, there's about 200 applications that have gone in on the expressions of interest. But for me, there's no reason why not. And we're the only location in South Yorkshire that's got a ready-made energy plant that can be converted into an AI data warehouse. I just think it'll bring so much inbound investment, both from the public and private sectors, and it'll really put Doncaster on the map. And why not? Because at the moment, we don't really have an AI data centre in the UK. We're really lacking in infrastructure. You're almost dealing with Victorian time in infrastructure. Our government is actually paying people to switch off wind farms because we're generating too much power because we can't store it anywhere because we've not got the battery storage. It just sounds like an alien concept to me. I just can't believe we're doing that. I understand why they're doing it, but for me, it's about harnessing the opportunity. And for me, I think South Yorkshire's great. Sheffield's had some great investment over years. Barnsley's done a brilliant job. Their media centre and the support they give the kind of, the e-business and media side of things is amazing. I see no reason as to why Doncaster can't compete on a national level.
Wonderful. Well, that's all for now. From all of us here at Traction, thank you for watching and thanks for listening. Thank you for being part of the show. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, share, and follow us for future episodes. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.